Hi beautiful, welcome to my channel. In today's video I figured I would do a full face of makeup and update you on a lot of the new products I've tried in the past couple of months. So if you're excited for a video that is not at first impressions, don't forget to give this one a thumbs up and let's begin. Me from the end of the video here to tell you that yes, I'm about to look this good, but also that Refer brushes are currently buy one get one free, so you can get them for up to 50% off, and the link is down in the description box. The first product I wanted to talk about is this Huda Beauty Concealer. The Faux Filter Concealer from Huda Beauty, unfortunately, and I really wanted it to work for me, it doesn't work for me when it comes to my under eye area. I feel like it looks a little bit too dry, a little bit too creasy. However, I have been loving this one for around my eyebrows. This is what I have around my eyebrows right now, and I love it because it gives me a nice highlighted effect. The color is right for around the brow area. This is the color Meringue, which I felt also was a little bit too light for my under eyes. But besides that, around my brow area, I guess my face is not as dry as my under eyes, plus there's not as many creases, so it lays beautifully, it highlights everything beautifully. If I have little hairs coming through, it disguises them in a really natural way. And so for around my eyebrows, I have actually really been using this one. For the under eye area, unfortunately, it's still a no for me because it just doesn't look the best down there. I have found that for my dry under eyes with my little bit of creasing that I have down there, the best types of concealer are definitely those concealers that are extremely thin and that you barely have to set. And I have one that is wonderful that we'll talk about once we get there. But first, let's talk about primer. I don't know the type of witchcraft that Milk used when creating this primer, but this mattifying primer from Milk is actually really nice. Let me get a little bit more. And let me tell you why. It is a mattifying primer that blurs your pores, and at the same time, it does not make my very dry skin any drier than it already is. It gives my pores a really nice, tighter appearance. I like that it mattifies the center of my face. I've been using it mainly right here, concentrating on the areas where I don't want to look shiny. So center of my forehead, center of my face right here, and the chin. And I have found that applying it in the areas where I usually have to touch up later, like if I ever get any oils come through, anything that I want to mattify afterwards, it's usually in this area here in the center of the face. And whenever I use this Milk makeup primer, I don't ever have to touch up my makeup afterwards. I think that it really controls your oils. This is coming from a dry person, keep that in mind. But I think that if you're looking for a new primer that is going to make your pores look a little bit tighter, that is going to control your oil really nicely, then you should definitely give this one a try. I really like it, and I don't really feel like I'm the target market for a product like this one. But you know, even though my cheeks are really dry, and notice how I didn't really put any like right here around my worst area, it's always nice to have something that controls shine right next to your nose, on your nose, and in the center of the forehead. So I like it. I recommend it. If you've been thinking about it, I'd say go for it. Of course, by the way, everything I'm using today, everything I'm talking about will be linked down below in the description box. So if you're interested in any of these products, please shop my links. Let's move on to foundation. And the foundation that I'm going to update you on is going to be the Lancome Tinted Ultra Wear Foundation. Why? Because this is one of the best foundations I've tried this year. Definitely one of the best foundations I've tried lately. I love it. I really, truly do. And a few of you were asking me whether or not I like this foundation more than some of my all-time favorite foundations in my collection, meaning my Pat McGrath foundation, my #1 the Chanel foundation, for example. Those are foundations that in the Pat McGrath case I have loved for years, and they continue to be my favorites. And I want to tell you kind of how I feel about this new Lancome foundation versus the Pat McGrath foundation, for example. First of all, I really think that they both lay on my skin beautifully. I love the texture and the finish, everything about this Lancome foundation. I love this Lancome foundation. Is a pretty thin foundation with a natural finish. It looks great on my dry skin. Now, when it comes to thin foundations, there aren't a lot of foundations that are as thin as the Pat McGrath foundation per se. The Pat McGrath foundation is probably one of the thinnest foundations I have ever tried. And so for that reason, I feel like it's really hard for another foundation to look more natural than the Pat McGrath foundation looks, because I feel like it's a medium coverage foundation that covers all of your redness, but at the same time, it's so thin that it is extremely skin-like. Now, this new Lancome foundation also looks extremely natural, but I do find it to be a little bit creamier of a texture, not as thin as the Pat McGrath one. I'm going to apply my Pat McGrath one on this side. They're not the same color, but that's okay. We'll live with that. And I'll tell you kind of the similarities and differences between them two. Long story short, I do still prefer my Pat McGrath one. However, you might not prefer the Pat McGrath one over the Lancome one. Let me elaborate. I find that the Pat McGrath foundation on me lasts beautifully all day, but that's because I have very, very dry skin. So I don't really have an issue when it comes to foundations lasting ever, because my skin is so dry that I don't really have many oils come through that might make the foundation disappear or break apart or not last as long. So since I've never had an issue with the Pat McGrath foundation lasting 12 plus hours on me, and I do find that the Pat McGrath foundation looks slightly more natural, I still prefer it. But I do find that the Lancome foundation, especially if you have normal or combination or oily skin, is going to last longer on you than the Pat McGrath foundation, because from what I've heard, people with combination to oily skin don't get the longevity of the Pat McGrath foundation. They still like it, but it doesn't last 12 plus hours on them like it does on me. And I do believe that if you use the Lancome foundation, which as you can see looks pretty natural as well, you will have a foundation that will last longer on you if you have combination or oily skin. So let me lower the light a little bit and show you side by side what they look like. Here's the Lancome foundation side. And then here is the Pat McGrath side. I feel like the Lancome one definitely has a little bit better coverage, because on the Pat McGrath side I can see the freckles on my cheek a little bit more and the redness come through like a teeny tiny bit, but I do find this to be a little bit more natural looking on me. However, there's barely any difference and I really truly do love them both. It's very, very hard for me to compare these, because honestly, I think that they both perform amazingly and they both look very, very natural on me. Let's talk about the e.l.f. Halo Glow next. This is the shade number 2. I'm just going to dot it right here on my cheeks, chin, and the center of my nose a little bit, just for added glow to everything I put on my face earlier. And I'm just going to tap it in place with a sponge. I really love the very natural glow that this gives your skin, especially when you use it on top of your foundation like this. This is the highlighter for people who don't love highlighter, because this will not add any texture to your face at all whatsoever. It looks highlighted, but at the same time, it looks extremely natural looking, and it is 100% the best dupe I have seen for the Hollywood Flawless Filter from Charlotte Tilbury. It is pretty much the exact same color. The only difference I could notice when I first tried them side by side was that this was a little bit thicker. But whenever I use it like today, without comparing them side by side, there's honestly not much difference I can tell between the two, besides the price difference. So if you want something glowy like this, something that'll give your skin a little bit of a highlighted look without having to wear highlighter, this right here is the product for you, and it is pretty affordable. I honestly really love this product from e.l.f. Besides that, it has killer packaging, and I just love to give my face targeted glow. Like, I have a natural looking foundation, but now I have very radiant cheeks, and I am all here for that. I went ahead and put a little bit of color corrector on, and let's move on to concealer. I was mentioning at the beginning of the video that for me, the ideal concealer for my under eye area has to be a concealer that is very thin and that you barely have to set, and I have found a new favorite recently. This is not necessarily a brand new product, but it is brand new to me and I love it. This is the Armani concealer, the Power Fabric Concealer, and it is so thin. Because it's so thin, it barely creases. It's quite amazing at not creasing for me, to be completely honest. It has really decent coverage as well, and you barely have to set it, if at all. I have worn this with powder on top, and I've worn it without setting it with any setting powder, and I honestly really like it both ways. When I use it without any setting powder on top, what I do is I blend it out like I'm doing right now, and I wait for it to dry. I see if it's moved any, if it creased any tiny little bit, and I go back with the sponge after it's dry over any creasing that might have happened, and it fully blends it out and the creases don't come back, which is amazing. I have this one in the shade 3.5, and honestly, I do not know why I never tried this concealer earlier. This was sent to me recently, which is the reason I finally got my hands on it. I didn't know this was so good. I've never heard anyone like raving about the Power Fabric Concealer, and so this one had never piqued my interest before, but I'm here to tell you it is amazing. I love it. Even though I have dry skin and this is a matte or natural to matte finish concealer, it is amazing. As you can see, it looks very natural underneath my eyes, really nice and brightening. I went ahead and blended it over my eyelids as well, and it barely creases at all. It's amazing. Honestly, really love this one. I don't know where it's been all my life, but if you're looking for a new concealer that has a decent amount of coverage and that is very thin in texture, I highly recommend this one. I say decent amount of coverage because I do find that I prefer to wear it with a little bit of a color corrector underneath. I honestly prefer this with most concealers. I find that a medium coverage concealer on top of a color corrector works better for me than a full coverage concealer. And so, I don't know, I just really love it. It has great texture, it does not crease, it's amazing. Here's another comparison that I've been dying to do, and I feel like this is the perfect video to do it. This one right here is the new Laura Mercier translucent powder. This one is the Ultra Blur powder, which is talc free, available at Sephora now in 3 different shades, versus this Laura Mercier powder, which I have been loving lately. This is the Rose Tone Up powder from Laura Mercier. This one has a little bit of a pink tint in it, but it's pretty light and kind of translucent at the same time. I find that these two powders have a lot in common, and they're both very different from the regular loose setting powder from Laura Mercier, in the sense that these are both a lot thinner. The rose one is probably going to give me a little bit more brightness, but I'm more interested in comparing them for their texture and seeing if one's a little bit more hydrating or drying than the other, whether one's a little bit thicker and the other one's a little bit thinner, etc. Underneath my left eye, I'm going to use the rose one. This right here is the Wayne Goss number 3 brush that I love to use for under eye setting powder. I'm going to dust off some of the excess, and I'm going to pat the rose powder underneath the eye. I grabbed a little bit more, and I'm going to set my eyelid with it as well, and I'm going to extend it down next to the nose. As you can see, this looks a little bit more rosy right now. Let me lower the light. It was looking strange earlier, so I made it a little higher, but I don't think it's needed. Okay, so here's this side of my face set with the Rose Tone Up powder from Laura Mercier. I'm going to dust off my brush, and I'm going to go with the new translucent one in the shade Light. Once again, I'm going to dust off the excess on the cap, and I'm going to go underneath my right eye with it, and I'm going to set my eyelid with it as well. So far, the only difference I can see is that this side does look a little bit brighter because of that rosy finish that the rose powder has. Now, as far as consistency and texture, coverage, all of that, there's honestly barely any difference between the two. However, because I do have dry skin, for some reason, I feel like the rose powder just kind of looks a little bit thinner, a little bit more skin-like. And the translucent one, even though it's a talc-free version of her regular one, and it's much thinner than her regular one, I can still see the powder on this one a little bit more. So I think the Rose Tone Up Powder from Laura Mercier is still the winner for me. I really love this one. I'm going to check if it's available anywhere besides the Laura Mercier website yet, because so far I've only found it on the Laura Mercier website. I'm going to link it below there, or if I find it at Ulta or Sephora, I'll link it from Ulta or Sephora. But this powder is amazing. I just love how skin-like it is and how it doesn't look powdery on my dry skin. It's really nice, honestly. So I still recommend you go with this one. For cream bronzer, I feel like my favorite one I've tried lately has to be this NYX one. I have mine in the shade Universal Light, and I just really love how natural this bronzing slash contouring stick is. I said it in the first impressions video, and I'm going to repeat it right now. I feel like you don't expect drugstore products, or at least I don't, to be as creamy as this one is. This one competes with a lot of my high-end products that are very, very similar. It blends so seamlessly. Did you just see that? That blended so easily. It is creamy, it is pigmented, and I love the color. On my light neutral skin tone, this looks extremely natural looking. It's not too warm, but it's also not too like ashy looking. I think that NYX killed it with this product. I honestly don't use the highlighter side that much. I could, but I don't usually go for cream highlighters like this one. And I do feel like I wish that the highlighter was a little bit more creamy. But as far as the bronzer is concerned, I love it. Plus, it's not too pigmented, so you can very, very easily control where you're blending the product, where you're applying the product, etc. Just take a look at what it looks like once it's blended out. I just find it so natural looking, so easy to blend, so easy to place, etc. This next product right here is amazing, and if you are looking for a new bronzing, contouring type product from the drugstore, unbeatable. Unbeatable. There is another bronzer I wanted to talk about in a powder form that I've been loving lately, and that is this one right here from Cosmetics. If you're someone who is scared of bronzer because a lot of bronzers are a little bit too warm for you, this one right here might be the one for you. And I'm saying that specifically because I saw it in a couple of comments on a video. This bronzer is never going to be too yellow for you. It has a really nice cool undertone, but it also doesn't look ashy. It has a great, very, very natural looking tone. It makes your face look sculpted but also bronzed all at the same time. Plus, Cosmetics has a really decent price point. I find that a lot of her products sell for like high-end prices, but they really are luxurious formulas. Honestly, anytime I've tried a product from Cosmetics, I am very impressed, and this bronzer did not disappoint. I love the shade, I love the formula, it's nice and blendable, and the color is just perfection. I've tried quite a few different blushes lately, but one that I keep going back to is this one right here from Laura Mercier, specifically the color Southbound I love. And the reason I love this blush so much is because it is very easy to apply, first of all. Besides that, I really love the color as well. And I find that even when you put it on top of powder, it brings back a very skin-like texture. And I am all for that. So I'm going to start by blending it back here, and then from the apples of the cheek, also blending it back. Look at that. It looks like beautiful, beautiful, natural looking skin. I just love the formula of this blush. It is so natural looking. It blends very easily. I'm going to do a little bit on the nose. And I find myself going back to this one all the time. In a lot of my previous videos, if you check the description box, I have been using this one a lot, even if I don't talk about it, because the video might be about, you know, something else. This is a blush that I've been reaching for a lot, and I just find it perfect. It's natural looking, it's not too bright, it's a nice and neutral shade, so it pretty much matches everything, and it blends very easily with a sponge. I love it. It's really good. As far as an eyeshadow palette is concerned, I've honestly been loving a lot of the new palettes I've tried lately. I'm going to do a ranking video on them soon, and I don't know which one to use today. I kind of want to maybe do one more look with the Michaela palette. This one right here from Nomad Cosmetics, I love. And of course we have Pat McGrath Mothership number 10. I'm just going to do something different and fun and combine a few palettes. I was going to combine 2, but we're going with 3. From the Nomad Cosmetics palette, Fets the Province, I believe this is called. Yes, I'm going to use this shade right here. This shade is called Champs de la Bande, and this is going to be my transition shade. This brush that I'm using for my transition is a Refer number 16. By the way, the Refer sale is still going on. Buy one, get one free. A lot of brushes are back in stock on their website. If I were you, I wouldn't miss it. Refer brushes are the best, especially if you own a Pat McGrath eyeshadow palette. Pat McGrath formula works 10 times best if you use a natural hair brush like these, I promise you. These natural hair brushes and Pat McGrath eyeshadows are besties. So, nice cool tone crease shade all over the place. And of course my link to the Refer website is down in the description box if you're interested. This is their best sale of the year. You're getting brushes at up to 50% off, which is amazing. I'm loving that transition shade so far, and I'm going to intensify it with the Michaela palette. I want to grab this shade right here called Mama Wang. I think this is going to be a little different, and it's also a little bit warmer. It's a little bit more pink, and I'm going to add it to the outer V of the eye. I thought it was also going to be a little darker, but it's not looking like it's darker, and that's okay because we have a lot of purples in this palette to make things darker, let's be honest. So I'm going to do Mimu right here next, and we're going to intensify with this one. Here we go, and I'm also going to do it on the outer V. I want this to be a little deeper, but I wanted it to have some sort of a mid-tone color in between the dark shade and the transition shade. And let's go in with the color Authenticity next and really smoke things out with this one. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with Mothership number 10, and I want to grab, of course, my favorite shade right here. I'm going to put it in the center of my eye. I figured this shade surrounded by purple would look amazing. I have to admit, it does. It looks amazing. And I'm going to go all the way from the inner corner and define my crease. And back with my Refer number 1 brush, I'm just going to make sure to blend the matte into the shimmer. Actually, I'm going to make those 2 shades transition even better by going back to the Michaela palette and using the color Batty. And I'm going to put that on the edge of the Pat McGrath shade. Yeah, see? That's a much better transition right there. For my waterline, I'm going to use this burgundy purpley eyeliner that Kathleen Lights did with Il Maquillage. And for the under eyes, I'm going to use the same shades that I used on top. For the inner corner with my Refer number 28, I'm going to grab the color Glazed and pop it right in here. Back with mascara and lashes on, I am loving this look. This look is everything. And I'm going to go ahead and do some lip liner. Let's do an oldie but a goodie. I feel like I haven't used this in so long. This is MAC's Whirl lip liner. Lip liner on, and for lipstick, I'm going to do this one from Kaja Beauty. This is, I think the color is called Love Swipe. No, Love Swipe is the name of the lipstick. This one is Sweet Softy. Yes, this looks so pretty. right here in the center. I love this look. I went ahead and used lipsticks that I've had for a while in my collection because I don't think I've tried any like super exciting new lip products lately. The new Urban Decay liquid lipsticks are good, but it doesn't match this purple eyeshadow look that I have going on today. And I'm pretty sure that that's the only new lip product I've tried lately. Anyways, I am obsessed with this look. Also, I'm obsessed with these lashes from Kiss. The link to them is down below. They are so pretty. They look like mink lashes and they're not. Super luxe lashes and they are drugstore priced. Anyways, I'm obsessed with this look and I really hope that you guys liked hearing about all of these new favorites of mine. All of these new products that have entered my collection and are basically a smash hit. I love them. So let me know what you think of these down in the comment section below. Also, let me know if my powder and foundation comparisons were helpful. And that is all I have for today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you're shopping the buy one get one refer brush sale, the link is down in the description box. And that is all I have for you guys today. I love you so much and I hope to see you back in the next video. Bye.